We're currently viewing the application SLA status dashboard used to understand the KPI scores of critical applications by individual business transaction. In our demo, most systems are kept in a critical state for the obvious reasons. For each application, we see the aggregated status based on performance, availability, and user productivity. The business applications listed are being used on physical desktops, virtual desktops, and mobile devices, and the SLA grade is cumulative across all device types. Ravi, let's drill down into Clinical Manager to see more specific details. For each business activity performed, we now see the number of suffering users of the current active user population, the baselines and SLA thresholds used, the current averages, and how many transactions are failing the SLA. A quick glance shows that submit note is in a critical state, impacting over 150 users. Real-time incidents have also been opened, which are integrated with the help desk or NOC systems. We'll speak a little bit more about that in a moment. For a more detailed analysis of the Clinical Manager application, which for our demo purposes IT is considering migrating to a virtual hosted desktop environment, let's take a look at performance by location. The chart shows the response for each activity by user location. You can switch the activities and locations to slice and dice the metrics differently. Now we see the response at each location grouped by activity. And what we see is that the response time of submit note is slowest in California, almost twice as slow as the other applications. We can also add a second chart that will correlate level of activity with the performance metrics currently being displayed. Analysis by location is only an example, as we could have just as easily grouped by department, role, machine type, browser type, for example. Ravi, the next use case I want to share is focused on quality of service as opposed to response time metrics. It will help us select which desktops or users are the best candidates for our VDI migration projects. Aternity normalizes the performance of multiple measurements or multiple different measurements to a single percentile score so that they can be compared against each other. In other words, it enables apples to oranges comparisons. The quality of service map shows the quality of service score for the Clinical Manager application on the x-axis. The 50th percentile represents the organizational average or the norm for this app. Higher percentages represent poor quality of service, and lower percentages represent better than average service. The size of the bubble represents the volume of activities performed from each machine. The larger bubbles are Citrix servers, the smaller bubbles, physical desktops running the app directly. We immediately see and immediately can identify the list of machines that are the best candidates for VDI migration based on the quality of service they are currently experiencing. The top desktops that we identified can be exported to Excel or viewed as a list by switching the grid to the grid view. Thank you, Ravi. Now that we've identified candidates for VDI migration based on the current quality of service, and of course map these use cases and scenarios to physical or virtual, they're all equally applicable, let's validate whether their desktop environments are indeed a good fit for VDI, taking into account their CPU, memory, and network consumption, as well as VDI-specific indicators such as UI objects and graphics. The top machines were the best fit for VDI based on their quality of service shown on the previous chart, and their resource consumption analysis are listed on the table in the table you're looking at. Note that non-green indicators are automatically highlighted to represent factors that require special attention in order to ensure optimal performance is indeed received once migrated. Thank you, Ravi. Now, having the empirical evidence to support user perception, or not, is key in providing users and organizations with the confidence they need to adopt VDI. VDI projects normally entail pilots. So once the VDI pilot is in process, the first thing enterprises want to compare is the performance between physical desktops and virtual desktop users for the same apps. In our demo, the pilot group uses 4 primary applications: Clinical Manager, Online Banking, SAP, and Outlook. So let's compare the comparison in this chart. The top chart represents average response time in seconds, while the bottom chart represents the transaction volume for each group. Notice how SAP performs better in the VDI environment in this example, and that Outlook is not being used on VDI at the time of this real-time comparison. Swapping applications with platform type actually enables an even clearer comparison. Here we can see that the online banking and clinical manager applications perform far worse in the VDI environment than they do on physical desktops. For the last segment of our visibility demo, let's look at some mobile examples, starting with a comparative view at the organizational level of mobile app performance. This chart compares end-user performance of the mobile email application across different Android and iOS versions. We see that this email application is performing best across the Android OS versions, and that Android OS is the most common platform for this application. Grouping by mobile OS is only an example. We could have grouped by device make or SSID or location, for example. Our second mobile example deals with mobile network signal strength, which is the most common cause of mobile complaints. Signal strength is especially interesting as it has nothing to do with the server's response or the device itself. Yet users will complain to IT, for example, that the experience from the cafeteria, we hear that often, is poor. In this dashboard, we see the signal strength of both the mobile network and the company's Wi-Fi. This can be further broken down to the Wi-Fi SSID and by individual mobile devices, including bring your own, to see if the reason for their complaint is that they are not connected to Wi-Fi or if the Wi-Fi is indeed slow.